I came home from work on a Tuesday evening to find my 18-year-old daughter Madison sobbing at the kitchen table, clutching her laptop. Madison confessed she'd just transferred her entire college fund, $37,000, to my parents, Gerald and Patricia, because they called her crying about needing emergency surgery. The money was supposed to cover Madison's first 2 years at Arizona State University. My stomach dropped. My parents are perfectly healthy. I saw them at brunch 3 days ago, laughing and vibrant. Something is terribly wrong. My hands shook as I grabbed my phone and dialed my parents' number. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. I tried again. Voicemail. A third time. Nothing. My chest tightened with each unanswered ring. Madison wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Her face was blotchy and swollen from crying. She looked so young sitting there in her coffee shop uniform, still smelling of espresso and steamed milk from her shift. "Mom, I'm so sorry," she whispered. Grandma was crying so hard on the phone. She said Grandpa needed heart surgery immediately and they didn't have enough insurance coverage. She said they'd pay me back in 2 weeks. I grabbed my car keys. "Stay here. I'll be back." The drive to my parents' house in Scottsdale took 20 minutes, but it felt like hours. My mind raced through possibilities. Maybe there was a real emergency. Maybe I'd misunderstood, but I'd seen them 3 days ago at our usual Sunday brunch at their country club. My father had been talking about his golf handicap. My mother had shown off her new designer handbag. Neither of them mentioned any health concerns. Their house sat at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, a sprawling ranch-style home with a 3-car garage. Both their cars were in the driveway. Every light in the house blazed. I could hear music playing inside. I didn't bother knocking. I used my old key and walked straight in. My parents were in the living room, both dressed casually, drinking wine and watching television. My father held a glass of red wine. My mother had her feet tucked under her on the leather sofa. They looked completely healthy. No signs of medical distress, no worry lines, no tension. They jumped when they saw me. "Charity," my mother said, setting down her wine glass. "We weren't expecting you." "Where's the surgery?" I asked, my voice cold. My father's face went blank. "What surgery?" "The emergency heart surgery you needed $37,000 for. The one you called Madison about today." My parents exchanged a look. That look told me everything I needed to know. My mother's face flushed. My father set down his wine glass and cleared his throat. "Now, Charity, let me explain," he started. "Explain what? That you lied to my daughter and stole her college fund?" My mother stood up, smoothing her blouse. "We didn't steal anything. Madison gave us the money willingly." "Because you told her it was a medical emergency." My father raised his hand. "We needed the money urgently. We fully intend to pay it back." "Then write a check right now, tonight. Give it back." My mother's expression shifted. She looked almost uncomfortable. "We can't do that. The money is already spent." My heart sank. "Spent? On what? You just got it today." "We gave it to someone who needed it," my father said. "It's already gone." I felt like the floor was dropping out from under me. "Who did you give it to?" Another exchanged glance between them. My mother spoke quietly. "We gave it to Amber, your niece." I stared at them in disbelief. Amber was my brother Trevor's daughter. She was 21 years old and worked as a sales clerk at a department store. "Why would you give Madison's college money to Amber?" My father's voice took on a defensive edge. "Trevor's family needed it more. Amber had an important business opportunity that required immediate investment. It was time-sensitive. Madison needs that money for college. The semester starts in 3 months." My mother waved her hand dismissively. "Madison can take out student loans like everyone else. She's young. She has time to earn more money." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She worked 3 jobs in high school to save that money. She's been planning for college since she was 14. "And we've always supported Trevor less than we supported you," my father said, his voice rising. "You've always been self-sufficient. You have a good job. Trevor has struggled financially. It's time someone else got help from this family. So you decided to steal from my daughter to help his?" "We didn't steal," my mother snapped. "And I'd appreciate it if you'd stop using that word. We borrowed the money from Madison to help Amber. It's a family matter." "Then get it back from Amber. and give it to Madison. We can't do that, my father said firmly. The money was a gift. We can't take back a gift. You told Madison it was a loan for surgery. My mother crossed her arms. You should have saved more for Madison yourself. You're her mother. It's not our responsibility to fund her education. The words hit me like a slap. I stood there, speechless, staring at the two people who raised me. They looked like strangers. I want you to leave now, my father said, moving toward the door. This conversation is over. I walked toward the door, my legs feeling numb. As I passed through the hallway, I glanced at the refrigerator. My mother always kept family photos there, held up with decorative magnets. There was a new photo pinned to the center. My parents, my brother Trevor, his wife Angela, and Amber. All of them smiling at a fancy restaurant. The photo was dated yesterday. Someone had written a caption on the bottom, celebrating Amber's new car. I stopped walking. My blood turned to ice. Amber's new car? I said quietly. My mother appeared behind me. She saw what I was looking at and quickly moved to block my view. Charity, you need to leave. You told Madison the money was for a business opportunity. You bought Amber a car. My father's face hardened. What we do with our money is our business. It's not your money. It's Madison's money. You lied about everything. Get out of our house, my father said, his voice flat and cold. Now. I left, but as I drove home, my hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly they ached. $37,000. Gone. Used to buy my niece a luxury car while my daughter's college dreams shattered. I had no idea yet just how much worse things were about to get. I sat in my driveway for 10 minutes before I could gather the strength to go inside. My phone buzzed. A text from my brother Trevor. Before I could open it, he was calling me. I answered. Trevor, did you know about this? Know about what? His voice sounded casual, almost amused. Mom and Dad took Madison's college fund and gave it to Amber for a car. Yeah, I know. Amber needed reliable transportation for her new job. Mom and Dad were generous enough to help. My jaw clenched. They lied to Madison and told her it was for emergency surgery. Trevor laughed. Actually laughed. Come on, Charity. Madison's 18. She should have been smarter than that. She trusted her grandparents. Look, Amber deserves this. You've always gotten everything handed to you. You got help with your education. You got the down payment help when you bought your first car. Mom and Dad have always favored you. It's about time someone else in this family got support. I never got $37,000 stolen from my child. Nobody stole anything. Stop being so dramatic. Madison can work her way through college. It'll build character. Trevor, that money took Madison 4 years to save. Then she'll appreciate college more when she finally gets there. Look, I have to go. Stop making this into some big deal. You always do this. You always play the victim. He hung up. I sat there staring at my phone. My own brother. My only sibling. He'd been part of this. He'd probably orchestrated the whole thing. Inside, Madison was exactly where I'd left her at the kitchen table. I had to tell her everything. Watching her face, as I explained about the car, about how everyone knew, about how her grandparents refused to return the money, broke something inside me. I'm so stupid, Madison whispered. I'm so incredibly stupid. You're not stupid. You trusted family. That's not stupid. That's human. I ruined everything. Her voice cracked. All that work, all those early mornings and late nights, 4 years of saving every penny, gone in 5 minutes because I was too dumb to question Grandma. I pulled her into my arms. She cried against my shoulder for a long time. The next morning, I decided to try reaching out to other family members. Maybe someone would have sense. Maybe someone would see how wrong this was. I called my Aunt Linda, my mother's sister. She'd always been reasonable. She'd always been kind to Madison. Linda, I need to talk to you about something serious. I explained everything. The lie, the money, the car, the refusal to return it. Linda was quiet for a long moment. Then she sighed. Charity, honey, I think you're overreacting. Overreacting? They stole $37,000 from Madison. They didn't steal it. Madison gave it to them. And family helps family. You should be happy that Amber got help. Trevor's family has had a harder time than yours. Patricia told me how well you're doing with your job. You can afford to help Madison. This is just you being bitter. Bitter? Linda. Madison worked since she was 14 for that money, then she can work more. Look, I don't want to get involved in family drama. I think you need to let this go and move on. Talk to you later. She hung up. I stood there in my living room, phone in hand, feeling completely alone. That afternoon, I saw that Trevor had posted on Facebook a photo of Amber standing next to a sleek black BMW, her arms spread wide, a huge smile on her face. The caption read, "So grateful to my amazing parents and generous grandparents for this incredible gift. Blessed beyond measure." The post already had 43 likes and 27 comments, all congratulating her, all celebrating her good fortune. I scrolled down and commented, "That car was purchased with my daughter's stolen college fund." Madison saved for 4 years, while Amber's grandparents lied about a fake surgery to trick an 18-year-old into handing over $37,000. I hit post. Within minutes, Trevor deleted my comment and blocked me on Facebook. Then the text messages started rolling in. From Angela, Trevor's wife. "How dare you try to ruin Amber's moment? You're just jealous because your daughter isn't as successful. Maybe if you'd raised Madison better, she'd have opportunities like Amber does." From my cousin Rachel. "Why are you being so negative? Can't you just be happy for Amber?" From my uncle Robert. "Charity, this is really ugly behavior. Family should support each other, not tear each other down." From my mother. "You are embarrassing yourself and this family. Delete that comment immediately." I blocked Trevor and Angela, but the messages kept coming from other family members. I was the villain in their story. I was the bitter, jealous sister and daughter who couldn't handle someone else getting help. The next day, I took time off work to consult with an attorney. I found one who offered a free initial consultation for family law matters. His office was small but clean, in a strip mall near the highway. Attorney Marcus Webb listened to my entire story, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he sat back in his chair and rubbed his temples. "Miss Charity, I'm going to be honest with you. This is going to be very difficult to pursue legally." My heart sank. Why? Because Madison willingly transferred the money. There was no force, no physical coercion. Your parents asked, and she gave. That's a voluntary transfer. But they lied about the surgery. That's fraud, potentially. But proving fraud requires showing that your parents made a false statement, knew it was false, intended to deceive Madison, and that Madison relied on that false statement to her detriment. In court, it becomes a he said, she said situation. Your parents will claim they never mentioned surgery, or they'll claim it was a miscommunication. And since the call wasn't recorded, there's no proof. But Madison can testify. She can. But defense attorneys will argue that she's biased because she's your daughter. They'll paint her as someone who made a bad financial decision and now wants to blame her grandparents. Juries don't always side with young adults in these cases. So, there's nothing I can do? You could file a lawsuit, but it would be expensive. Legal fees could run $15,000 to $20,000, maybe more, if it goes to trial. And the timeline would be months, possibly over a year. That's too late for Madison's fall enrollment. I felt tears prickling my eyes. So they just get away with it. I'm not saying don't pursue it. I'm saying you need to understand the reality. The legal system isn't always fast or fair. And family cases are especially complicated. I thanked him and left. I sat in my car in the parking lot and did the math in my head. I had about $12,000 in savings. I made $52,000 a year as a dental hygienist. My rent was $1,400 a month. I had my own student loans, $19,000 still outstanding, with monthly payments of $285. I could not afford to replace $37,000. And I couldn't afford a lengthy legal battle either. That night, Madison and I sat at the kitchen table with her laptop, looking at her options: student loans, work-study programs, delaying enrollment by a year. Every option felt like a compromise, a step down from what she'd earned. The next morning, a courier delivered a certified letter to my door. I signed for it, with shaking hands. Inside was a letter from Anderson and Price, attorneys at law. It was a cease and desist order, My parents had hired a lawyer. The letter stated that I was engaging in harassment and slander against Gerald and Patricia Hartwell, my parents. It cited my uninvited visit to their home, my threatening behavior, and my false and defamatory statements on social media. The letter demanded that I cease all contact with them immediately and refrain from making any further public statements about them. Failure to comply would result in legal action, including a lawsuit for defamation and a restraining order. An hour later, another courier arrived. A second cease and desist letter, this one from Trevor, Angela, and Amber. Similar language. Similar threats. I was being legally threatened for trying to get my daughter's money back. I called the attorney's office listed on the letterhead. The receptionist told me that any communication had to be in writing. I sat on my couch, holding both letters, and realized that my entire family had coordinated against me. They'd planned this. They'd anticipated that I might fight back, and they'd prepared their legal defense before they even stole the money. My daughter's college fund was gone. My family had turned against me, and now I faced potential legal action if I even tried to get justice. But I had no idea that in just a few days, things would get so much worse that I'd wish this was the worst of it. Monday morning arrived too quickly. I'd barely slept over the weekend, lying awake running through scenarios in my mind. Every possible plan I came up with hit a wall. No money, no legal options, no family support. I walked into Southwest Dental Associates at 7:45, 15 minutes before my first patient. I'd worked at this practice for 9 years. Dr. Richard Hammond had hired me fresh out of hygienist school. The office felt like a second home. Sarah, the receptionist, gave me an odd look when I walked in. "Dr. Hammond wants to see you. Right away." My stomach tightened. "Do you know what it's about?" She shook her head, but her eyes said she knew something. Dr. Hammond's office was at the end of the hallway. His door was half open. I knocked. "Come in, Charity. Close the door." I did. Dr. Hammond sat behind his desk, his face serious. He was 58, a kind man with graying hair and wire-rimmed glasses. In 9 years, I'd never seen him look this uncomfortable. "Have a seat," he said. "Ishot. Mi hand felt cold." "Charity, I received a phone call on Friday afternoon. From your mother, Patricia Hartwell." My blood turned to ice. "She expressed some concerns about you. She told me that you've been under significant stress lately. She mentioned that you've been making threats against family members. She said you've been emotionally unstable and that she was worried about your judgment." "That's not true," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Hammond raised his hand gently. "Let me finish. She also said that she was concerned you might be a danger to patients. She suggested that your mental state was compromised, and that I should be aware of it as your employer." I felt like I was going to be sick. "I know this is uncomfortable," Dr. Hammond continued, "and I want you to know that I've always found you to be professional, competent, and completely reliable. But when an employer receives a call like this, I have legal obligations. Our corporate policy requires that I take any complaint about an employee seriously." "Dr. Hammond, my mother lied to my daughter and stole her college fund. When I confronted her about it, she threatened me with a lawyer. This is retaliation." He nodded slowly. "I believe you. But my hands are tied by corporate policy. When there's an allegation about an employee's mental fitness or potential danger to patients, HR requires a temporary leave of absence while they investigate." "Leave of absence? Unpaid leave. I'm sorry, Charity. The investigation will take 2 to 3 weeks. During that time, HR will interview relevant parties, review your employment record, and make a determination. Once they clear you, you'll be reinstated with full back pay." 2 to 3 weeks without pay? "I'm truly sorry. I fought against this. But corporate is strict about these policies. My hands are completely tied." I walked out of Dr. Hammond's office in a daze. I gathered my things from my locker. Sarah watched me leave, sympathy in her eyes. In my car, I did the math again. 2 to 3 weeks without pay meant missing at least 2 paychecks. That was over $3,000. My savings would drop to under $9,000. With rent due in 2 weeks and bills piling up, I was staring at financial disaster. And Madison needed to make a decision about college within 6 weeks. Without payment, she'd lose her spot at Arizona State. The housing deposit we'd already paid, $2,000, was non-refundable if she withdrew. When I got home, Madison was getting ready for her shift at the coffee shop. She took one look at my face and knew something was wrong. I told her everything. She sat down on the couch, her coffee shop visor still in her hand. "This is my fault." "Madison, no. If I hadn't been so stupid and given them the money, none of this would be happening. You wouldn't have lost your job." "I didn't lose my job. It's temporary. And you're not stupid, they're criminals." But even as I said it, I wondered if I believed it. The system wasn't treating them like criminals. The system was protecting them and punishing me. Over the next few days, things spiraled further. Trevor's wife Angela started sending me text messages. At first, they were sporadic. Then they became constant. "You're a terrible mother. Madison is spoiled and entitled. If you'd saved more money, Madison wouldn't need to rely on her grandparents. Trevor says you've always been jealous of our family. Your daughter is just like you, ungrateful and bitter. Maybe if you'd raised Madison with better values, she wouldn't expect handouts." The messages kept coming, each one more hostile than the last. I blocked Angela's number, but then she started texting from different numbers. On Thursday, I went to my church. I'd been attending Redemption Valley Community Church for 15 years. The congregation was my community. These people had celebrated Madison's graduation with me. They'd supported me through my divorce 8 years ago. They knew me. But when I walked into the sanctuary for the evening service, something felt different. People looked at me and then quickly looked away. Conversations stopped when I approached. My friend Jennifer, who I'd known for 12 years, gave me a quick, uncomfortable smile and moved to sit on the other side of the church. After the service, Pastor Graham's wife Helen approached me. She was a sweet woman in her 60s, always quick with a hug and a prayer. "Charity, can we talk for a moment?" We stepped into a quiet hallway. Helen's face was kind but concerned. "I heard from Patricia about the family troubles you're going through." My heart sank. "What did she tell you?" "She mentioned that you've been having some difficulties, some mental health challenges. She's worried about you, honey. She said, you've been making accusations against the family, and that you might need professional help." "Helen, that's not what's happening. My parents stole my daughter's college fund." Helen patted my hand. "Family conflicts are so hard. I think maybe some family therapy would be beneficial. Would you be open to that?" "I don't need therapy. I need my parents to return the money they took." Helen's smile became strained. "Sometimes when we're under stress, we see things in a way that might not reflect reality. Patricia mentioned that you've been having financial troubles and that you might be projecting your frustration onto the family." I realized then that my mother had been thorough. She'd called my workplace. She'd talked to my church community. She was systematically destroying my reputation, painting me as mentally unstable, as a liar, as someone who couldn't be trusted. "I need to go," I said. Helen looked disappointed. "I'll pray for you, Charity." I left the church and didn't go back. That weekend, Madison had what I later learned was a severe anxiety attack. She woke up at 3 in the morning, gasping for air, her heart racing. She thought she was dying. I drove her to the urgent care center. The doctor examined her, ran an EKG, and determined it was anxiety-related. He prescribed medication for anxiety, $90 per month, that our insurance barely covered. He also recommended weekly therapy sessions. I called our insurance company the next day. Therapy was covered, but only after we met a deductible of $3,000 per year. After that, they'd cover 80%. That meant therapy sessions would cost me $150 each week until we hit the deductible. Madison needed help. I couldn't say no, but the math was crushing. Over $500 per month for Madison's mental health care, on top of everything else. I applied for a second part-time job. There was an opening at another dental practice across town for weekend work. The pay was decent, $28 per hour for Saturday and Sunday shifts. It would help. I submitted my application, did a phone interview, and was offered the position. They said they'd run a background check and call my current employer for a reference. Standard procedure. 3 days later, I got an email. The position had been filled by another candidate. When I called to ask why, the hiring manager was evasive. "We decided to go in a different direction," she said. I found out later from Sarah, at my regular job, that the second practice had called Dr. Hammond's office for a reference. The HR investigation came up. The practice decided not to take a risk on someone under investigation, even though I'd done nothing wrong. On Tuesday, 2 weeks after the money was stolen, I checked my bank account and saw I was down to $8,000. Rent was due in 3 days. My credit card payment was due. Madison's medication needed to be refilled. The urgent care visit had cost $400, even with insurance. Madison stopped eating properly. I'd find her staring at her laptop, looking at her Arizona State acceptance letter, tears running down her face. She quit her coffee shop job. She said she couldn't handle being around people, couldn't handle the questions about college, couldn't handle pretending everything was fine. I was watching my daughter fall apart and I was powerless to stop it. And then, on a Wednesday afternoon, I got an email that made my heart stop. The email was from admissions at Arizona State University. The subject line read, "Important information regarding Madison Hartwell's enrollment." I opened it with shaking hands. "Dear Miss Hartwell, we have received a phone call regarding Madison Hartwell's enrollment at Arizona State University." The caller identified herself as Madison's grandmother and expressed serious concerns about Madison's mental health and stability. She indicated that Madison has been experiencing significant psychological issues and suggested that Madison might pose a risk to herself or other students. In accordance with university policy, we take all concerns about student safety seriously. Before Madison can complete her enrollment, we require a comprehensive psychological evaluation from a licensed mental health professional. This evaluation must confirm that Madison is mentally and emotionally fit to attend university. Please submit the evaluation no later than July 15th. Failure to provide this documentation will result in the cancellation of Madison's acceptance. Sincerely, ASU Admissions Office. I read the email 3 times. July 15th was 3 weeks away. A comprehensive psychological evaluation would cost at least $800, maybe more. And my mother had done this. She'd called the university and sabotaged Madison's acceptance. I showed the email to Madison. She read it silently, then closed her laptop and went to her room. I heard her crying through the door. I sat alone in my kitchen and wondered how much more we could take. I had no idea that we were about to hit absolute rock bottom, and that the worst betrayal was still ahead. I borrowed money from a payday loan place. I'd never done anything like that before. The interest rate was 23%. It felt like I was drowning and grabbing at anything to stay afloat. The loan gave me $2,000. I used $800 immediately to pay for Madison's psychological evaluation. The psychologist, Dr. Brennan, was kind. She spent 3 sessions with Madison, gave her some assessments, and concluded what I already knew. Madison was anxious and depressed because of what had happened to her, but she was not dangerous or unstable. She was a traumatized young woman who'd been victimized by her own family. Dr. Brennan wrote a comprehensive report and sent it to Arizona State. Madison's acceptance was secured again, but the damage to her mental health remained. The payday loan payment came due 2 weeks later, $200, just for the first payment. I paid it and watched my savings drop to $6,500. Rent was due, $1,400, down to $5,100. The credit card payment, $300 minimum, down to $4,800. Madison's therapy and medication, $400 for the month, down to $4,400. Groceries, gas, utilities, another $600, down to $3,800. I was bleeding money and had no income. The HR investigation at work was entering its 3rd week. Dr. Hammond had called to apologize and say they were being thorough. I appreciated his kindness, but it didn't pay my bills. Madison's therapy was helping, slowly. Dr. Brennan worked with her on coping strategies and processing the betrayal. But progress was slow. Madison still spent most days in her room. She'd stopped seeing friends. She'd stopped doing the things she used to love. One afternoon, I went into her room to check on her. She was lying on her bed, staring at the ceiling. "Mom, I think I should just not go to college. We're not having this conversation. I mean it. I could work full-time, save up again, maybe go next year or the year after." "Madison, you work too hard for this. We're going to figure it out." "How?" We're out of money. You're not working. I ruined everything. You didn't ruin anything. They did. But even as I said it, I wondered if she was right. Maybe we should give up. Maybe the fight was too hard. That night, I got a series of text messages from Angela. Somehow she'd gotten my new number. You're pathetic. Still trying to blame others for your failures. Madison is weak just like you. Neither of you can handle real life. Trevor says you've been crying to everyone who'll listen. Grow up. Your daughter isn't special. Stop acting like she deserves special treatment. I didn't respond, but each message felt like a knife. The next day, I checked my credit card statement online. There were charges I didn't recognize. $1,500 in online purchases, electronics, gift cards, charges from websites I'd never visited. I called the credit card company immediately. The fraud department opened an investigation but froze my account in the meantime. They said it would take 2 to 3 weeks to resolve and refund the fraudulent charges. In the meantime, I had no access to that credit line. No backup for emergencies, no cushion. I suspected Trevor or my parents had gotten my credit card information somehow. Maybe from old family records. Maybe from a time I'd used it at their house. But I couldn't prove it. Another thing I couldn't prove. Another violation I couldn't fix. On Friday morning, Madison had another severe anxiety attack. This one was worse than the first. She couldn't breathe. Her hands went numb. She thought she was having a heart attack. I took her to the urgent care center again. Another $400. More tests. The doctor increased her anxiety medication and recommended she see a psychiatrist, not just a therapist. Psychiatrists cost more. When we got home, there was a notice on my door from my landlord. He wanted to meet with me. I called him. His name was Mr. Grayson, a retired accountant who owned several rental properties. He'd always been reasonable, even kind. But his voice on the phone sounded different. Charity, I received a disturbing phone call yesterday. From who? Someone identifying herself as your mother. She told me you lost your job and that you're unable to pay rent. She suggested I start eviction proceedings before you fall too far behind. I closed my eyes. Mr. Grayson, I didn't lose my job. I'm on temporary leave while HR investigates a false complaint that my mother filed. I'll be back to work soon, and I can pay rent. Can you provide documentation of your employment status? I don't have pay stubs right now because I'm on leave, but I can show you my employment contract and my bank statements showing regular deposits from my employer. I'm going to need to see those. And Charity, I'm going to need next month's rent paid early, by the 20th instead of the 1st. I need some assurance. Mr. Grayson, I've paid rent on time for 6 years. I understand, but given the circumstances, I need to protect my interests. If you can't provide the documentation and pay early, I'll need to start looking at my options. I spent the weekend gathering documents, employment contract, bank statements, letters from Dr. Hammond confirming my employment status. I dropped them off at Mr. Grayson's office on Monday morning. He reviewed them and agreed to wait, but the early rent requirement stood. That afternoon, I got a call from the HR department at Southwest Dental. They wanted to schedule a formal interview with me as part of their investigation. The interview was scheduled for Wednesday at 2 in the afternoon. I dressed professionally, arrived early, and sat across from 2 HR representatives I'd never met. They worked for the corporate office that owned the dental practice. They asked me question after question about my relationship with my parents, about my behavior at their house, about my social media activity. They showed me printed copies of my Facebook comment about the stolen money. They showed me the cease and desist letters. They'd also interviewed Patricia. She'd given written testimony about my supposed instability. She'd mentioned conflicts between us going back years. She'd painted a picture of me as someone with a history of family drama and poor judgment. The HR representatives were professional, but skeptical. I could see it in their eyes. They were trying to determine if I was a risk to the practice. We take these matters very seriously, one of them said. We need to be confident that our employees are mentally and emotionally stable. I am stable. My mother is retaliating against me because I confronted her about stealing from my daughter. That's your perspective. Your mother sees things differently. The interview lasted 90 minutes. When it was over, they said they'd make a decision within the next week. I left feeling defeated. Even if they cleared me, the damage was done. My reputation was tarnished. My relationship with Dr. Hammond, once so positive, was now complicated by suspicion and corporate policy. On the drive home, I got a text from my former best friend Nicole. We'd known each other for 12 years. Our daughters had played together when they were little. We'd celebrated birthdays and holidays together. Charity, I heard about everything from Angela. I think you need to let this go. You're hurting yourself and Madison by holding on to this anger. Angela says you've been obsessing over this and making everyone miserable. Maybe it's time to move on. I called her. Nicole, do you know what actually happened? Angela told me. Your parents helped Amber and you got jealous. They lied to Madison about emergency surgery and took her college fund. That's your version. Angela says there's more to the story. She says you've always resented Trevor and that you're using this as an excuse to cause drama. Nicole, you've known me for over a decade. Do you really think I'd lie about something like this? She was quiet for a moment. I think you're under a lot of stress. I think maybe you're seeing things in a way that's not entirely accurate. And I can't be in the middle of this. Angela is my cousin. I have to support my family. I thought I was your friend. You are. But this is too much. I'm sorry, Charity. I hope you find peace. She hung up. I sat in my car in the parking lot of Southwest Dental and cried. I'd lost my family, my job, my best friend, my church community, and my savings. Madison had lost her college fund, her mental health, and her trust in people. And the people who'd done this to us were living their lives, unpunished, untouched by consequences. That night, I went through my mail. There was a notice from the credit card company. Their investigation into the fraudulent charges would take up to 60 days. In the meantime, I was responsible for the charges unless they determined the fraud was valid. 60 days. I didn't have 60 days. Madison came out of her room around 9 that night. She looked thin. She'd lost weight. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Mom, I found something. She showed me her laptop. She'd been researching my parents' finances through public records. Look at this. Grandma and Grandpa own 3 rental properties. All paid off. They're worth over $600,000 total. I looked at the screen. Property records from the county assessor's office. My parents owned the house they lived in, plus 3 rental houses in Phoenix. The estimated values were listed. They get rent from all 3 properties, Madison continued. I did the math. Even conservative estimates put their rental income at over $4,500 per month. Plus, Grandpa's pension and Social Security. They told me they didn't have the money to help you with college. They were lying. They have money. They just chose not to help me. Madison kept clicking through records. And look at this. Amber's been posting on Instagram. She's been bragging about her credit cards. She has 3 cards, all maxed out. But then I found court records. She pulled up another screen. Amber has judgments against her. She owes money to 3 different creditors. Over $50,000 total. She's being sued. And look at this. More records. Trevor and Angela filed for bankruptcy 2 years ago. Chapter 7. But here's the thing. In bankruptcy, you're supposed to disclose all gifts you received in the past year. I don't see any mention of gifts from Grandma and Grandpa. I leaned closer to the screen. Are you saying they committed bankruptcy fraud? I think so. And it looks like Grandma and Grandpa have been giving them money for years. Under the table. Unreported. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than despair. I felt the faintest stirring of hope, because Madison had just handed me a weapon, and I was about to learn how to use it. I stayed up all night researching. Madison helped me. Both of us drinking coffee and going through public records, court documents, social media posts. By morning, we had a picture of my family's financial situation that shocked me. Trevor and Angela's bankruptcy from 2 years ago had been approved. They'd been granted discharge of over $78,000 in unsecured debt, credit cards, medical bills, personal loans, all erased. But bankruptcy law required disclosure of all gifts received in the year before filing. I found records showing my parents had given them $15,000 8 months before they filed. That gift wasn't disclosed anywhere in the bankruptcy paperwork. That was bankruptcy fraud. A federal crime. Amber's situation was even worse. 3 separate creditors had obtained judgments against her. She owed $22,000 to one credit card company, $18,000 to another, and $11,000 to a personal loan company. Plus, interest and fees piling up daily. Creditors could garnish wages. They could put liens on property. They could seize assets purchased with cash after a judgment was entered, like a brand new BMW, purchased with $37,000 in cash. And my parents' rental properties had multiple tenant complaints filed with the city. Broken air conditioning units not repaired for weeks during summer heat. Plumbing issues ignored. Safety hazards. The city housing department had records going back 3 years. Additionally, I found property tax records. My parents had been reporting their rental income, but the amount seemed low, too low. I suspected they were underreporting to avoid taxes. By dawn, Madison and I had compiled a detailed file. Every document saved. Every screenshot captured. Every piece of public information organized. On Monday morning, I went back to Southwest Dental for the final HR meeting. The 2 corporate representatives sat across from me again. "We've completed our investigation," the senior one said. "We've reviewed your employment record, interviewed relevant parties, and assessed the situation. We found no evidence supporting the allegations made against you. Your employment record is exemplary. You're cleared to return to work immediately." Relief flooded through me. "Thank you. We're also providing you with full back pay for the time you were on leave. Dr. Hammond advocated strongly for you throughout this process. You should know he never doubted you." I returned to work that afternoon. Dr. Hammond welcomed me back with genuine warmth. My coworkers were supportive. Sarah, the receptionist, hugged me. The back pay hit my account 2 days later. Over $3,000. Not enough to fix everything, but enough to breathe. I paid my landlord the early rent he'd required. I paid some bills. I was still in a hole, but I wasn't drowning quite as desperately. Madison's mental health was slowly improving with therapy. Dr. Brennan was helping her process the betrayal and rebuild her sense of safety. Madison started eating normally again. She even applied for a new job, and got it, working at a bookstore near our apartment. But the August deadline for Arizona State was approaching fast. Madison needed to pay her tuition by August 1st or lose her spot. We had 6 weeks. I decided to make one last attempt to get the money back. Against every instinct that told me it was pointless, I drove to my parents' house on a Saturday afternoon. I didn't call ahead. I just showed up. Multiple cars were in the driveway. I recognized Trevor's truck and Angela's sedan. Amber's BMW was parked on the street. They were having a party. I could hear music and laughter coming from the backyard. I walked around the side gate. My parents had a pool in the back, surrounded by a nice patio and outdoor furniture. Everyone was there. My parents, Trevor, Angela, Amber. They were drinking, eating from a catered spread of food, laughing together. They didn't notice me at first. I watched them for a moment. They looked so happy, so carefree, not a worry in their world. Amber was wearing an expensive-looking sundress and designer sunglasses. She was showing everyone something on her phone, and they were all laughing. She looked like she didn't have a care in the world. I walked onto the patio. The laughter died. Everyone turned to look at me. "What are you doing here?" my father asked. "I need to talk to you, all of you." "You're not welcome here," Angela said. "You need to leave." "I'm not leaving until you listen to me." I looked at each of them in turn. My parents looked annoyed. Trevor looked angry. Angela looked disgusted. Amber looked uncomfortable. Madison might lose her spot at Arizona State. "I'm begging you. Please give back the money. At least part of it. She's your granddaughter. Your niece. She's family." My mother crossed her arms. "We've been through this, Charity. The money is gone. It was a gift to Amber. Amber used it to buy a car. She didn't need it. Madison needs it for education." Amber stood up. She was smirking. Maybe Madison should have been smarter with her money. The casual cruelty in her voice stunned me. She trusted her grandparents. "That's not stupidity. That's trust." "Sounds pretty stupid to me," Amber said, and took a sip of her drink. I turned to my parents. "How can you justify this? How can you sleep at night, knowing what you did?" My father's face hardened. "You want the truth, Charity? Fine, we never intended for Madison to go to college." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What? Your side of the family has enough education," my mother said. "You went to college. You have a degree. You have a good job. Trevor's children deserve opportunities too. They deserve to have advantages. We wanted to balance things out. By stealing from Madison? By helping Amber, my father corrected. Amber needed that money more. Trevor stepped forward. I asked them to do it. Months ago. I told them Madison had savings and that we needed help for Amber. They agreed. I stared at him. You planned this? We planned to help our family. You're not the only one who matters, Charity. Madison is family too. Madison is fine, Angela said. She can take out loans like millions of other students. She's not special. I looked at Amber. You knew? You knew where that money came from? Amber shrugged. Grandma and Grandpa gave it to me. Not my problem where it came from originally. It was stolen from your cousin. Borrowed, my mother corrected. And we make our own decisions about who we help. If you had a problem with it, you should have raised Madison to be less naive. The cruelty was breathtaking. These people, my family, felt no remorse, no guilt, no shame. I'm going to the police, I said. Trevor laughed. Go ahead. You have no case. Madison gave the money willingly. There's no crime. You lied to her. Prove it, Angela said. She held up her phone. And by the way, I've been recording this whole conversation. You came onto private property uninvited. You're harassing us. Say anything threatening, and we'll have evidence. I realized I'd walked into a trap. They wanted me to lose control. They wanted me to threaten them so they could use it against me. I turned and walked away. As I left, I heard Amber laugh. God, she's so dramatic. I sat in my car, parked down the street, for a long time. My hands shook. My chest felt tight. They'd won. They'd stolen from Madison, destroyed our family, ruined my reputation, and they were celebrating with pool parties and catered food. I drove home. Madison was sitting on the couch, reading a book for her bookstore job. How did it go? She asked hopefully. I shook my head. They don't care, Madison. They planned this. They targeted you on purpose. And they feel no guilt. Madison set down her book. Her eyes filled with tears. So that's it? They just win? I don't know what else to do. We sat together in silence. Two people who'd done everything right, worked hard, played by the rules. And we'd been destroyed by people who had no rules at all. But then Madison opened her laptop. Mom, look at this. She showed me everything she'd found again. The bankruptcy fraud, the creditor judgments, the property code, violations, the probable tax evasion. What if we stop trying to fight them directly? Madison said. What if we just report what they've actually done to the right authorities and let the system deal with them? I looked at my daughter, 18 years old. She'd been victimized, betrayed, and traumatized, but she hadn't broken. She'd been researching, planning, thinking strategically. That's actually brilliant, I said slowly. They think they're untouchable. But they're not. They broke laws, multiple laws. We just have to make sure the right people know about it. For the first time in weeks, I smiled. Let's do it. I spent 3 full days organizing everything into a comprehensive file. Madison helped me create a timeline with dates, amounts, and documentation for every claim we were making. We worked like investigators, cross-referencing everything, making sure every fact was bulletproof. The bankruptcy fraud was the most serious. Trevor and Angela had filed their Chapter 7 bankruptcy petition on March 10th, 2 years ago. The court approved it on July 2nd, that same year. But in November, 5 months after approval, my parents had given them what court records showed as a $15,000 gift. Bankruptcy law required disclosure of all transfers and gifts received in the year before filing. That $15,000 gift from 11 months before filing should have been disclosed. It wasn't. And there were more gifts we found through bank records Madison had accessed from an old family shared account my parents forgot to remove her from years ago. My parents had been giving Trevor money for years, none of it reported to the bankruptcy court. That was bankruptcy fraud. The penalty could include criminal charges, reversal of the bankruptcy discharge, and repayment of all discharged debts. On Monday morning, I drafted a detailed letter to the bankruptcy trustee who had handled Trevor and Angela's case. I included copies of bank records showing the unreported transfers. I included my parents' own social media posts, bragging about helping Trevor's family. I included timeline documentation showing the pattern of gifts. I mailed it certified mail with return receipt requested. Next, I contacted Amber's creditors. This was trickier because I didn't want to identify myself directly. I created an anonymous email account and sent detailed messages to all 3 creditor companies that had judgments against Amber. I'm writing to inform you that Amber Hartwell recently received a gift of $37,000 in cash, which she used to purchase a BMW valued at approximately $37,000. This purchase occurred after your judgment was entered. Under Arizona fraudulent transfer law, this may constitute an attempt to hide assets from creditors. The vehicle was purchased on June 14th of this year. Vehicle information attached. I included the car's VIN number, which Madison had found through Amber's Instagram posts, where she'd photographed the vehicle. I included screenshots of Amber's social media posts bragging about the gift. Creditors are aggressive when they believe a debtor is hiding assets. They can file motions to seize property purchased after a judgment. I knew they'd act quickly. Then, I moved to my parents' rental properties. I contacted each tenant through public records and social media. I explained who I was and asked if they'd be willing to file formal complaints with the city housing department about any unresolved issues with their units. 2 of the tenants responded enthusiastically. They'd been dealing with serious problems for months. Broken air conditioning during Phoenix summers, leaking pipes, electrical issues. My parents had been ignoring repair requests, collecting rent, and doing the minimum to avoid legal trouble. Both tenants filed official complaints with the Phoenix Housing Department. They documented everything: photographs, dates, communication records. The city opened formal investigations. The housing inspector visited all 3 rental properties within the week. The inspection reports were damning: multiple code violations, safety hazards, failure to maintain habitable living conditions. The city issued notices of violation with 30-day deadlines to complete repairs. The estimated cost to bring all 3 properties up to code was over $60,000. Finally, I addressed the tax issue. This required the most careful research. Through Madison's access to old family financial records, we found evidence that my parents had been underreporting their rental income for years. They were claiming rental income of about $2,400 per month total across all 3 properties. But based on market rates and tenant information Madison found, they were actually collecting closer to $4,500 per month. That was significant unreported income. Over several years, it added up to serious tax evasion. I filled out IRS Form 3949A, the form for reporting suspected tax fraud. I provided detailed information about my parents' rental properties, their likely actual income versus reported income, and supporting documentation. I included copies of property records, estimated market rental rates, and screenshots of tenant complaints mentioning actual rent amounts. The IRS takes tax fraud seriously, especially when it involves significant amounts over multiple years. I knew an audit was likely. I mailed the form to the IRS. Then, I waited. The waiting was the hardest part. I went back to work. Madison continued therapy and her bookstore job. We tried to maintain normal routines. We didn't contact my parents or Trevor. We didn't post anything on social media. We just lived our lives. I focused on Madison's college plans. With my back pay and careful budgeting, I'd managed to save enough to cover her first semester tuition. It wasn't the full amount she needed, but combined with some student loans and her work-study award, she could make it work. She'd accepted that she'd need loans. We both had. 7 days passed, then 8, then 9. On day 10, I got a call from a blocked number. I almost didn't answer. Is this Charity Hartwell? Yes. This is Janet Morrison with the Bankruptcy Trustee's Office. I'm calling about a letter we received regarding the bankruptcy case of Trevor and Angela Hartwell. Do you have a few minutes to discuss this? My heart raced. Yes, I do. We've reviewed the information you provided. This is a serious matter. We'll be opening a formal investigation into potential bankruptcy fraud. We may need you to provide additional documentation and possibly testify. Are you willing to cooperate? Absolutely. I want to be clear. If fraud is proven, the consequences for Trevor and Angela could be severe. Their bankruptcy discharge could be revoked. they could be required to repay all discharged debts. There could be criminal charges, civil penalties. This is not a small matter. I understand. And your parents, Gerald and Patricia, could also face charges if we determine they knowingly participated in hiding assets. Conspiracy to commit bankruptcy fraud is a federal crime. I understand. Okay, I'll be in touch. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. She hung up. I sat down on my couch. It had started. The wheels were turning. That same afternoon, Madison got a call on her cell phone. It was from a law firm representing one of Amber's creditors. They wanted to know if Madison had any information about a transfer of $37,000 to Amber Hartwell. Madison politely explained what had happened. The attorney took detailed notes. She asked for documentation. Madison promised to send everything she had. The attorney explained that they'd be filing a motion to execute on the judgment by seizing the BMW. They'd also be pursuing additional collection actions. She thanked Madison for her cooperation. 2 days later, my parents received a certified letter. I know because my father called me, screaming, breaking his own cease and desist order. What did you do? What the hell did you do? What are you talking about? We got a letter from a bankruptcy trustee about Trevor's case. They're investigating us. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. You did this. You reported us. I have no idea what you're referring to. Maybe you should talk to your attorney. He was still yelling when I hung up. That same day, according to texts Angela sent me from yet another new number, my parents also received 3 more letters. One from the Phoenix Housing Department detailing code violations and required repairs with a deadline of 30 days. Estimated cost, $68,000. One from the IRS notifying them of an audit for the past 7 years of tax returns related to their rental properties. 3 letters from law firms representing Amber's creditors, notifying them that they were being sued for fraudulent transfer. The creditors argued that my parents had given Amber $37,000 in cash after her creditors obtained judgments, specifically to help her hide assets. They were demanding return of the money plus fees and costs. Angela's texts were panicked and furious. This is all your fault. Trevor's bankruptcy is being investigated because of you. They could make us pay back everything. We could go to jail. How could you do this to your own family? Amber's car is being taken. The creditors filed papers to seize it. Your parents have to pay $60,000 to fix their rental properties or lose them. The IRS is auditing them for 7 years. Do you know what this will cost them? You're destroying this entire family. I didn't respond. I blocked the number. That evening, my phone rang. My mother, I answered. She was crying. Actually crying. Charity, please. You have to stop this. You have to call them off. Call who off? The bankruptcy people. The IRS. The creditors. All of them. Please. We can't afford this. We're going to lose everything. I didn't do anything illegal, Mom. I simply reported facts to the appropriate authorities. Please. I'm begging you. We'll pay you back. We'll give Madison her money. It's too late for that. It's not too late. We'll write a check right now. Tonight. Please, Charity. Please. You should have thought about consequences before you targeted my daughter. We made a mistake. We know that now. Please don't do this to us. I'm not doing anything to you. You did this to yourselves. You committed crimes. Multiple crimes. And now you have to face consequences. Charity, please. Your father could go to jail. Trevor could go to jail. We could lose the rental properties. We could lose our retirement. Please. I'm your mother. You stopped being my mother when you stole from my child. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up. 2 minutes later, Trevor called. I answered. Charity, we need to talk. Now. Face to face. I don't think that's a good idea. I'm coming to your apartment. Don't leave. We need to settle this. He hung up before I could respond. 30 minutes later, there was a knock on my door. Trevor, Angela, and my parents all stood there. They looked terrible. My mother's eyes were red from crying. My father looked pale. Trevor looked furious. I opened the door, but didn't invite them in. We stood in the doorway. What do you want? Trevor spoke first. The bankruptcy trustee is threatening to reverse our discharge. That means we'd owe $78,000 again. Plus penalties. Plus potential criminal charges. Okay. Amber's car is being seized. The creditors got an emergency court order. They're taking it tomorrow. Okay. Mom and Dad have to pay $68,000 to fix the rental properties, or the city will fine them thousands more and possibly condemn the properties. Okay. The IRS audit could result in them owing over $90,000 in back taxes and penalties. Okay. Angela stepped forward. You have to stop this. You have to withdraw the complaints. Tell them it was a mistake. I can't withdraw an IRS audit. I can't stop creditors from collecting on valid judgments. I can't stop the bankruptcy trustee from investigating fraud. I reported facts. That's all. What happens next isn't my decision. My father's voice shook. We'll give you the money. All of it. $37,000. Plus, whatever Madison needs for therapy or anything else, just make this go away. I can't make it go away. The authorities are involved now. It's out of my hands. There has to be something, my mother begged. Some way to fix this. I thought about it. There might be one thing that could help. They all leaned forward eagerly. If you were to immediately return Madison's money, plus compensation for her medical expenses, therapy, and the psychological evaluation you forced her to get, and if you were to publicly apologize and correct all the lies you spread about me, that might show the authorities that you're taking responsibility. It might show good faith. It might help your cases. Maybe. How much? Trevor asked. $37,000 for Madison's college fund. $4,000 for her medical and therapy costs. That's $41,000 total. That's not all of it back, Angela protested. No, it's not. But it's more than the original theft, which shows remorse. The authorities will see that you tried to make it right. It might help. Or it might not. I don't know. But it's the only thing I can think of. My parents looked at each other. My father nodded slowly. We'll do it. We'll write the check tonight. We'll send apology letters. We'll post on social media. Whatever you want. Just please, tell the bankruptcy trustee and the IRS that we made amends. I can tell them. I can't control what they do with that information. That's all we're asking. I gave them my attorney's information. Work through my attorney. Have him draft a settlement agreement. I want everything in writing. The money, the apologies, all of it. Once it's signed, I'll notify the relevant authorities that restitution has been made. They agreed. They left. 3 days later, my attorney called. My parents, Trevor, Angela, and Amber, had all signed a comprehensive settlement agreement. $41,000 to be paid immediately. Written apologies to be provided to my employer, my landlord, my church, and posted publicly on social media. An agreement to have no contact with Madison or me for a minimum of 1 year. The check cleared. Madison's college fund was restored. And 10 days after I'd started the process, my family learned that karma isn't always instant, but it's always thorough. The settlement agreement was executed on a Wednesday morning. My attorney called to confirm that the check had cleared. $41,000. Madison's college fund, fully restored, plus compensation for everything they'd put us through. That afternoon, all 5 of them, my parents, Trevor, Angela, and Amber, appeared at my attorney's office to read their written apologies aloud. My attorney recorded them on video as part of the agreement. I watched the recordings later. My father's voice shook as he read his apology. He admitted they'd lied to Madison about needing surgery. He admitted they'd taken the money knowing it was for college. He admitted they'd given it to Amber for a car, not a business investment. My mother cried through her entire apology. She admitted they'd called my employer and landlord with false information. She admitted they'd spread lies at church and to family members. She admitted they'd targeted Madison specifically because they thought I was weak and wouldn't fight back. Trevor's apology was shorter, but equally painful for him to read. He admitted he'd planned the whole scheme. He'd asked his parents to get the money from Madison. He'd known exactly where it was going and what it would be used for. Angela apologized for the cruel text messages and for participating in the lies. Amber apologized too. She admitted she'd known the money came from Madison. She admitted she'd been dismissive and cruel about it. Their apologies were genuine because they were terrified. The bankruptcy investigation was ongoing. The IRS audit was proceeding. The creditor lawsuits were active. The housing code violations still had to be fixed. But the restitution helped. My attorney sent certified letters to the bankruptcy trustee, the IRS, and the creditors, notifying them that full restitution plus damages had been paid. The letters included copies of the settlement agreement and proof of payment. It didn't make everything go away. Trevor and Angela's bankruptcy discharge was ultimately revoked for fraud. They had to enter a payment plan to repay $32,000 of their original discharge debts. Trevor was placed on probation but avoided jail time because he'd made restitution and cooperated with the investigation. My parents' IRS audit revealed they owed $96,000 in back taxes, penalties, and interest. They had to sell one of their rental properties to pay it. Their retirement savings took a massive hit. The housing code violations cost them $68,000 to repair. Combined with the IRS debt, they were financially devastated. Amber's BMW was seized by creditors and sold at auction. She filed for bankruptcy herself. She moved back in with Trevor and Angela, who now had 3 adults living in their small house, all stressed and broke. My parents sent formal written apologies to Dr. Hammond at Southwest Dental. He accepted them graciously and assured me my job was secure. They sent apologies to my landlord, Mr. Grayson. He was kind enough to reduce my rent by $50 per month for the next year, as compensation for the stress they'd caused. They posted public apologies on Facebook. Some family members reached out to me to apologize for believing their lies. Linda, my aunt, called me crying and said she was sorry for not believing me. I accepted her apology. We were rebuilding our relationship slowly. Other family members never apologized. Some people still sided with my parents, still believed I'd overreacted. I realized those relationships weren't worth saving. The congregation at church was informed of the truth. Several members approached me with genuine apologies. Pastor Graham's wife Helen apologized personally and asked for my forgiveness. I gave it, though I never quite felt the same about that church. I eventually found a new church community where I felt more comfortable. Madison and I used the $41,000 wisely. $37,000 went back into her college fund. We put it in a new account, one that only Madison could access. My parents would never touch her money again. The remaining $4,000 covered her therapy costs for the year and replaced the money I'd spent on the psychological evaluation and emergency medical visits. In August, Madison and I drove to Arizona State University together. Move-in day. Her dorm room was small but cheerful. She'd requested a single room, needing space to process everything that had happened. The university had accommodated her. We spent the day setting up her room. Bedding, desk supplies, posters for the walls. She'd chosen a poster with a quote, "She believed she could, so she did." It made me tear up. As we were carrying the last box from my car, Madison stopped and hugged me tightly. "Thank you, Mom, for not giving up, for fighting for me." I held her close. "You never have to thank me for that. You're my daughter. I'd do anything for you." "I know. And I'm sorry I was so stupid and gave them the money in the first place." "Madison, stop. You weren't stupid. You were trusting. They're the ones who should be ashamed, not you." She pulled back and looked at me. "I learned something through all of this." "What's that?" "That being kind doesn't mean being weak. That trusting people doesn't make you stupid. But also that it's okay to fight back when someone hurts you. You taught me that. You didn't yell. You didn't threaten. You just made sure the truth came out. That's powerful." I smiled. "You're going to do amazing things here, Madison. I know it." She started classes the next week. She joined a study group. She made friends. Slowly, her anxiety lessened. The therapy continued. Weekly sessions with a counselor on campus. But she was healing. She was thriving. 6 months later, I got a promotion at work. Dr. Hammond called me into his office and offered me a position as office manager, overseeing all the hygienists and the daily operations. It came with a raise to $58,000 per year. I accepted gratefully. I paid off my credit card debt. I rebuilt my savings. I paid down my student loans aggressively. I joined a support group for victims of financial abuse. I met other people who'd been targeted by family members, who'd been manipulated and stolen from by the people who were supposed to love them. Hearing their stories, sharing mine, it helped. It reminded me I wasn't alone. I started dating again. Nothing serious at first. But I met someone nice. a teacher named Daniel who worked at a local high school. He was kind, patient, and understood when I told him about what had happened with my family. We took things slowly. Madison came home for winter break. She was healthy, happy, and confident. She'd made the dean's list her first semester. She'd found her people, her community. She talked excitedly about her classes and her plans for the future. One evening, we sat together on the couch, drinking hot chocolate and watching a movie. During a commercial break, Madison turned to me. "Mom, do you think you'll ever forgive them? Grandma and Grandpa and Uncle Trevor?" I thought about it carefully. I don't know. Maybe someday. Forgiveness is complicated. Right now, I'm not ready. But I'm not angry anymore. I'm just indifferent. They're not part of my life, and I'm okay with that. Do you think they learned anything? I hope so. I hope they learned that actions have consequences. That you can't just hurt people and expect no repercussions. But honestly, I don't spend much time thinking about them anymore. I'm focused on us, on our future. Madison smiled. Good. Me too. 4 years passed. Madison graduated from Arizona State University with honors. She majored in psychology with a minor in social work. She wanted to help people who'd been through trauma. She'd turned her own pain into purpose. At her graduation ceremony, I sat in the audience with Daniel, who'd become a permanent part of our lives. Madison walked across that stage, received her diploma, and looked directly at me in the crowd. She mouthed, "We did it," I cried. Happy tears this time. After the ceremony, Madison and I took photos together. She wore her cap and gown proudly. She'd earned every bit of that degree. "None of this would have happened without you," she said. "You fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. You showed me that standing up for what's right is always worth it, even when it's hard." "You would have done the same for me," I said. "I would. Because you taught me that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when everything falls apart." That night, as I drove home alone, Daniel having gone ahead to prepare a celebration dinner, I reflected on everything that had happened. The theft, the betrayal, the systematic destruction of my reputation, the financial devastation, the legal battles, and the victory. Not because my parents and Trevor faced consequences, though they did. Not because we got the money back, though that was important. The victory was that Madison and I survived. We came out stronger. We learned that we could face terrible things and not break. We learned that justice sometimes requires patience and strategy, rather than confrontation and anger. We learned that the quietest revenge is often the most powerful. When people try to destroy you, the best response is sometimes to simply document their actions and let the system handle them. Report facts to appropriate authorities. Use proper legal channels. Be patient, be strategic, and never, ever let anyone convince you that protecting your child makes you the villain. Madison's college degree was worth every sleepless night, every dollar spent, every relationship lost, every moment of stress and fear, because we did it together. My parents and I never reconciled. Trevor and Angela moved out of state a year after everything happened, trying to start over somewhere their bankruptcy wasn't public knowledge. Amber eventually got her life together, found a stable job, and started paying off her debts. I heard these updates through extended family members who maintained relationships with both sides. I wished them well but had no desire to reconnect. Some bridges, once burned, shouldn't be rebuilt. Madison is 26 now. She's a licensed therapist working with trauma survivors. She's married to a wonderful man who respects and supports her. They're talking about buying a house. I'm 51. Daniel and I got married 3 years ago. I'm still working at Southwest Dental, now as assistant practice manager with a comfortable salary. My student loans are paid off. My retirement account is healthy. Life is good. Not perfect, but good. And sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I think about that day in my parents' kitchen when my father said they never intended for Madison to go to college. I think about how close we came to losing everything. And I'm grateful, not for what happened, but for what we learned. That sometimes the people who are supposed to love you will hurt you the worst. That greed can make people do terrible things. That family isn't always forever. But also that you're stronger than you think. That justice exists, even if it takes time. That patience and strategy can defeat cruelty and manipulation. And most importantly, that a mother's love for her child can move mountains, defeat enemies, and overcome any obstacle placed in her path. Madison's $37,000 college fund became the foundation of our unbreakable bond. The betrayal that was meant to destroy us made us stronger, and in the end, we won what really mattered: each other. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been betrayed by family? Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and standing up for what's right? How did you handle it? Leave a comment below and share your story. Your experience might help someone else who's going through something similar. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. Subscribe to stay updated with more real-life stories about resilience, justice, and triumph over adversity. And share this with anyone who needs to hear that it's okay to fight back when someone hurts you or your children. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being part of this community. I hope you found something valuable here, whether it's validation, inspiration, or just the comfort of knowing you're not alone in your struggles. Remember, you're stronger than you think. Your voice matters. And protecting those you love is never wrong. Take care of yourselves. Stand up for what's right. And never let anyone make you feel guilty for defending your child. Until next time.